Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, a podcast that brings a special guest out of the multiverse and straight to you. And now your host, David Ginsburg.
And welcome to another episode of Tales from the Fandom. Today I am joined by Loryn Stone, author, writer, blogger, and all-around funny person who I connected with somehow on the great wide world of Twitter. Welcome to Tales from the Fandom, Loryn.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. How are you doing today?
I am feeling excellent, thank you.
So we connected on Twitter, which has been such an incredible journey of like finding great people to connect with, and it's such a blast, like just following along with like what you're putting out there, whether it's just like your tweets or what you're blogging about. You are a lot of fun to just follow.
Thank you. I say a lot of things. I have a lot to say.
Well, it's a good venue to at least, at least they've added the extra characters so that way you can say a little bit more and then get some people to click on the awesome links of like stories that you're putting out there and getting like just all around. Like there's been some really good blogs that you've been putting out recently.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. I'm definitely trying to produce quality work that's as good as any other comedy website out there. So that's really my goal for the year. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, it's a good goal to have, and hopefully, we're recording this in February, so hopefully when this episode comes out, it'll be more people going to the site and checking out your work, and everyone else that's contributing, and just it's a lot of fun. Either your work or the people that you've been having contribute, just really great stuff.
Thank you.
Now, you are into two really big but totally different fandoms that we're going to get to first. And I want to kick it off with one that I know as much as I guess I can. I do know that I'm missing parts of that fandom, but totally Sailor Moon. Like, when did you get into Sailor Moon?
I got into Sailor Moon. It's funny. All right. So the first time I ever saw the show was in 1996. I had a friend. I was living in Israel as a kid for 3 years. That's another story. And she had a VHS tape of Sailor Moon in English. And I was just starved for Western, I guess, well, I say Western cartoons because it was dubbed into English, but it was anime. And she gave it to me, and I was huge into Power Rangers at the time. She said it's like Power Rangers, but with girls. I gave it a chance, and I hated it. I don't know if that was the dubbing or if I was angry and 11. It was atrocious. I'm like, who watches this? It's the worst. 2 years later, I'm back in the States, and I'm hanging out with a group of girlfriends, and they were really into Sailor Moon, which was airing on Toonami. And so they're like, watch it with us. I'm like, ugh, I remember that show. It was awful. I go back and watch it with them. I'm like obsessed. And then the internet had been happening. So I started, looking up like, after the third run on Toonami, because they only had 60 episodes at best. After like the third run of it, I was just like, I know there's more. I know there's more of this. And I was familiar with anime just from watching it on different channels. And I remember old Nick Jr. was anime, and I loved the original Little Mermaid movie from 1975, where she's blonde and she dies and it's sad. And so I was like, I know there's more Sailor Moon out there. And that's when the internet rabbit hole started. And I was just immersed into the fandom completely. I was getting bootleg videos. I knew all the characters that didn't exist on TV yet. And it all just kind of went from there.
Yeah, it's totally crazy because at that time, because I remember when they published an article in a newspaper about Sailor Moon coming to Cartoon Network. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of this. And then I had friends I think they were seniors and I was a junior in 96. And they're like, oh, you need to check it out. And they had these VHS tapes again of the Japanese audio, but the English subtitles. I don't know where they got it from, but they got it from somewhere, and they're like, yeah, this is so cool. And like, that was my first experience with it. And I'd watch the Toonami stuff, and it's like, I like it. It's like, because I was also like Power Rangers person in high school. I just love that type of stuff because I grew up on Voltron back in the 80s. And it's like, yeah, this is like the itch that needed to be scratched. And I just enjoyed it, even with the eventual like learning of like the way that they dubbed the show and the changes that they made. Like I really dug the
Mm-hmm.
show.
Yeah, it was a really just special time, and I know that like Dragon Ball Z fans had a similar experience where the dubbing cut off at a certain point, or they would just re-air the same sagas. I was in the anime club in high school, and they didn't know there was life outside the Frasier saga, and so that's all they showed. And I'd be like, "Hey guys, I have this. I have Fushigi Yugi. I have Slayers. I have these other genres. I have Escaflowne. Do you guys want to watch anything else?" And they'd give me a minute at best. They even said no to Evangelion. I'm like, "You guys, come on, this is a staple. Like, is this the Dragon Ball Z club or is this the anime club?" And so I eventually left the club because it was too stifling.
Yeah, that's the thing is that it depends on. I really think like it depends on the person, and I think it depends on the people that you have around you, because like I started with Sailor Moon, but then the people that I met in college really like they're like, oh, you need to watch this, and they'd show me like Love Hina or Azumanga Daioh or Neon, Evangelion, and just all sorts of anime that had been coming out, and I was like, this is awesome.
Yeah, but it's funny. I remember somewhere around, I want to say 2003, 4, 5. I think that's when I started kind of trickling away from anime. Like around, I think the most recent series I completed is like Chobits, which is way old at this point. And like when Excel Saga and Hikaru no Go, the board game and the Ghost anime. Um, and like, so for me, that's kind of where it all halted. I guess it's sort of the shift between VHS and DVD, to be honest, if I really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was into anime all through college, and then even when I lived in Japan, I would watch it over there. But at a certain point, I think right when I came back to the States, it kind of just got too much. Like there's too much Naruto going on, and too much like of these series that had the extra filler episodes for a year or two while they're catching up on storylines, and I just got tired of it. I was like, okay, I think I'm done for a little bit.
I agree with you. And I think maybe it's even, I don't want to, peg our lifestyles, but maybe it's even sort of getting older. You just have less and less time. So even now, when I go on to the streaming sites, which everything's just there for me, it's super easy and I appreciate that convenience. If something's over 20, 25 episodes, like I tap out. I can't. I don't have that time to invest in an anime anymore. And that's kind of a bummer, but that's my reality.
Right, exactly. And not only is it that, but with anime, I want to listen to it with the original voice acting, and I'll read the subtitles, and that takes a lot more effort than just putting something on and just listening to what's going on and like as a background noise. Because when I work, I tend to listen to like stuff on Netflix or just something where I can just it's mindless. I don't have to really pay attention. And anime, I have to pay attention because I want to read what's going on.
I want to see the giant robot fights and explosions too. Yeah, I can't just tap out with anime. I agree. I need to be fully immersed, and I'm like you. I just never caught on to dubs. Like there have been a few over the years where I'm like, that dub was okay. I used to watch the Ranma dub. I thought the voice acting was pretty good for that, but ultimately, I mean, they've been dubbing anime since the 70s up until now, and I really don't quite. I'm going to sound like such a snob right now, but I really don't understand why they haven't managed to nail the voice acting. The inflections are just, and I hope none of the voice actors I know are like actually going to listen because they're talented people. They are, but it's the direction. It's still just very strange. It's dubbed anime to me just sounds very strange, and maybe that's because I've been hearing Japanese since I was 13 at this point. But I don't know. I
Hmm.
don't know.
Right. It's just there's something about it where it's like you hear it the way that you hear it, and that like you get those voices in your head. You get those Japanese the way that it's spoken in Japanese rather than in English, and you're like, it's not really fitting the characters the way it maybe should be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it comes down to that.
I gotta ask, like, what was it about Sailor Moon the second time around that really connected with you as opposed to the first time that you watched it?
That's a good question. I think just starting with the way it moved, I thought was just really, really attractive because it was the Deke episode still. And I didn't really, I think it was once the Deke episode stopped, but the second time around, I realized there was more to it. It was really with Sailor Moon S, with the outer senshi, Sailor Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto. I'll be perfectly honest. It was Neptune and Uranus's lesbian relationship, and it being just so normal and good that it just resonated with me. I'm bisexual. I was at that age where I was starting to question my sexuality, unsure of it, and just to see those normal characters, it gave me just like hope, and it just resonated with me. It just made me feel like everything I was feeling was normal. And then when I saw later Sailor Stars, and you see Sailor Starfighter, who is male when he's like a civilian, and then transforms into a female, but has that love affair with Sailor Moon, or at least he's into her. I'll say there's no love affair, but just seeing all that normalization of sexuality is really what made me connect to the series. And I know it did that for a lot of people. This isn't a unique perspective, but it was special to me.
Yeah, that's the one portion of the series I never saw, is that not the outer senshi portion, but I think Sailor Stars is that one section where I've never seen any of it. Like, I've seen pieces on the internet, like pictures or screen captures, but I've never seen any of that, like, actually to be watched through.
Which is really, really, really a shame, because it's my favorite season. The animation is stellar. It looks so good. I love the story. The Starlights are my absolute favorites. I adore those characters. I have so much. I'm such a nerd. I have so much like Starlight swag. I have a tattoo of their chest emblem on my arm. I have like earrings, and I have a hat, and I have like a blanket and like a backpack, and my license plate says Sailor Starlights. Like, I'm just so in love with those characters. They really, where the outer senshi started, the Starlights finished with helping me just figure out my existence.
Now, what happened as far as did it just not come to the States for a while, or did it, like, what was the story behind that? Because I know you're like super into Sailor Moon, so you maybe know that story and I don't.
As far as I know, I'm not sure if there was some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if it was just some sort of problem with the Starlights because they're male and they transform into females. I know some other countries where that season was dubbed, they had issues with it. Like in Italy, for example, they devised this whole convoluted story about how it was three guys, and then when they transformed, it was like there's twins. Like all three dudes conveniently had a twin sister that was a Starlight. So that was a huge problem in Italy, and that's how they dubbed it over there. In, I think, maybe other versions, they just kept him as females dressed in drag the whole time. So I don't know if in America it was something political where they were like, we can't show these characters, they're just too edgy, there's something wrong, or if it was something as simple as we lost the license to the series, we're not interested in this final season, because it took years even for the third and fourth season to come to America, and those were licensed by Cloverway. And I'm pretty sure fans out there can correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think they aired more than once. Whereas the early Deke episodes aired like 3, 4, 500 times before we got the end of the second season, touted as the lost episodes. I really am not sure if that third and fourth season ever aired more than once. I don't know where the interest in Sailor Moon was at that time. So yeah, with the fifth season, it might have been political, it might have been financial. I have never found a concrete answer.
And I know that with like the outer senshi, where they had changed Uranus and Neptune to cousins, and that was like the big thing. And I know a lot of people who had grown up watching Sailor Moon, when they eventually make that realization of, oh, they're not cousins, it's like, okay, yeah, like I see that they have changed things, and there must be more out there.
Exactly, which is really a sad insult that because clearly their relationship was just too close. It's sad that incest was considered more appropriate than homosexuality, at least at that time in our daytime TV anime culture. But I'm glad we moved past that.
Now, I normally ask like who your favorite character would be, but I think you've already answered that with the Sailor Stars.
Yeah, I love the Starlight, specifically Sailor Star Maker, which is a huge, like that character, that poor character. I won't go off on Sailor Star Maker all too long, but that character just gets like the crap end of it. She's the one with the attack with the star gentle uterus, and it's just really, that character gets a lot of crap, which of course makes me go, why do I have to? I mean, not that she's an amazing character, but it's just funny that, like, of course that's my favorite. I can't just be like, oh yeah, Sailor Venus, easy, great, lovely. But no, I have to go for the one that I have to explain.
Now, I know that there's the new Sailor Moon Crystal that's like out now. Are you still watching, or are you mostly tied to like the classic Sailor Moon stuff?
No, I'm watching Crystal. I enjoy it. I enjoy it for what it is. It's one of those things where the original series ended. I've seen all the stage musicals up until 2004 when the original stage musicals ended. I've seen the movies. I've read a good portion of the manga. I consume the Sailor Moon media that I can get. I played a bunch of the video games. So when Crystal came out, it was just a treat. I love it for what it is, and I don't harp it for what it isn't. It's that simple for me.
Okay. So you're not like, that's not my Sailor Moon, get it off of my TV.
No, I don't care. I'm happy to see it there. I'm happy that I mean, my only thing would be is can we get a new story? Why do we start over from scratch every single time? And the musicals did it too, and it's like we always just start over from the Dark Kingdom, which is Queen Beryl and that whole story, which is fine if they want to keep retelling that story. That's their prerogative. But I would crave a new story. But if they're trying to stay loyal to the manga, the comic, that's fine, and I enjoy it for what it is.
Absolutely. And now for people like me who maybe have not seen like the Stars season, where would I find that? Like, is it something that's still like to this day, like something that's just hard to get your hands on?
No, it's on Hulu.
What?
It's on Hulu. They're only dubbed up to, I believe, I think up to season 2 is dubbed on Hulu, and then the box sets are coming out with the new dub. But yeah, the whole series is on Hulu. All of Crystal, all of the original, it's all there.
Oh my goodness. I don't get on Hulu much. Like, mostly I think I got onto it for Handmaid's Tale and Runaways, and those were the two only things that I go on to there. My wife uses Hulu a lot more than I do, so I'm going to have to ask what her password is again.
It might be on Crunchyroll, but yeah, I know it's on Hulu. I watched it recently.
All right, everyone, go check out the Stars season, so that way you can find out all about these characters, just like I'm going to have to do, because I've always heard stuff about them, but I've never seen them in action.
They wear thigh-high black boots. You have nothing to lose. Go.
Now, going from one end of like the fandom spectrum to the other, and we're going into the realm of I've seen bits and pieces, but I don't know much more about it. But you're really into Mystery Science Theater.
I am. I'm a total Misty.
How did you get into Mystery Science Theater? I remember seeing it on TV occasionally, and I'd be like, I have no idea what's going on, and I'd flip the channel, and that was my sole experience with it.
Mine started pretty similarly because I never caught the episodes when they started, so I didn't know there were host segments. I didn't understand the characters, the robots, the villains. I didn't understand the dynamic, that it was a comedy. All I know is that I would turn on the TV. It would be set to sci-fi on like a Sunday morning because I spent my Saturday night watching whatever anime was on the night before, so it was still on sci-fi. So I'd turn it on, and I'd see them in the theater with the silhouettes at the bottom of the screen, and I'm like, this is so embarrassing. But I was like, why are they talking over the movie? And I just didn't understand the shtick. But then I had a friend who was into it, and she had some of the VHSs, and she said, you have to get into this. Or maybe she had got the box set. She just got the first DVD box set. I didn't really connect to the movies then. There were a lot of black and white ones that were just hard movies to get through. No matter how good the riffing is or how funny everything is, like if the movie is just too tough, for me, it's just not an episode I can get through. But then when I finally saw the season 3 premiere, which was Cave Dwellers, which was filmed in the 80s, it was a movie in color. It was this really just terrible faux fantasy movie about this Conan barbarian type dude. That was the episode that I really connected to. I saw it from the start. I got to see Joel and the robots and Dr. Forrester and that dynamic. Like the host segments were hilarious. The actual movie was ridiculous. The riffing was amazing, and that just sucked me in. And from there, I was stuck.
What is it about the show that you love so much? Like what eventually drew you to it? Was it the riffing, or was it the like getting to just experience like that movie with the comedy elements? Because again, I didn't know that there was like different segments. I just thought it was them talking about the movie jokingly.
Right. Well, when you catch it from the beginning of the episode, you see it actually has, I mean, every episode is standalone, but you have these characters you connect to with the host and his robots, and then you have the bad guys that sent him into space, and then they're ridiculous, and they talk to him. And the early episodes had this invention exchange where they would, because the host and creator Joel was a prop comic, so they would have these physical creations that they would kind of rip off each other. But I think what attracted me to it mostly was just initially the dry, bland humor. And I really liked that sort of improv watching the movie. And because I was like 17 and 17-year-olds or 17-year-olds, I would then go to the actual movies with my friend. And we would talk over the movies, just trying to practice our chops. And people didn't like that. I remember the first we did it 2 movies. We went to see the do you remember Final Fantasy Spirits Within? And so we went to that and we just ripped it up, the whole thing. No one kicked us out. I mean, I think everybody was so thoroughly unhappy that there was nothing our talking could do that would make it any better or worse. And then then when the first Pokemon movie came into theaters, we did it again. We were sitting in the theater front row, just yapping. We thought we were hilarious. We were just MSTing the whole Pokemon movie, and I swear some 12-year-olds were going to murder us on our way out. But that's what it was initially. But then, and it was sort of a solitary experience because you just didn't meet a lot of fans. But when you did, the camaraderie was so amazing. And to this day, so many of the MST3K fans I've met on Twitter are just the most accepting, nice, helpful, creative, amazing people. And I'm laughing with strangers, and we're talking about our episodes, or someone will start typing lyrics from a song and we all jump in and take a line. And I never could have imagined. And then when I went to WonderCon back in 2017, I did my Pearl Forrester cosplay, and I carried my life-size Tom Servo, the small red robot. I carried him around as my prop, and people just got so excited. Like whole families came up to me and my friend who was cosplaying Brain Guy, who's one of Pearl Forrester's cronies, and they were taking pictures with us. Like it was nuts. I never had anyone respond to one of my cosplays like that. And we had like dads saying, "We watch your show as a family." I'm like, dude, I'm a cosplayer. But it was so sweet. It was just such a response. And that's continuously the response that you get from the MST3K fan base, whether you're writing an article and sharing it amongst everybody, or whether you're sharing your favorite joke, or whereas some other anime fandoms where they say, "We're making a new season," everyone goes, "Ugh." But with MST, they're like, "We're making a new season, the revival," and everyone's just so excited. And there's no pretentiousness with the MST3K fandom, and that's my favorite thing about every fan I've met so far. So that's my story.
It's a good story. If I was going to get into it, if I wanted to get into the MST3K, where would you suggest I start to just like dip my toes in?
I think the movie everyone could agree with is a great starter is probably Manos: The Hands of Fate. That one is just a fan favorite. The movie is awful, but it's awful in a hilarious way. It's just a strangely put together thing. As far as my personal, where I think the actual movie is watchable in addition to phenomenal riffing, I would say, again, Cave Dwellers, Pod People, Space Mutiny. There's one called Overdrawn at the Memory Bank, which actually stars Raul Julia. It was one of his final roles before he died, which is amazing because, he was Gomez Adams and he was M. Bison in the Mortal Kombat movie, and we know him as this perfectly great actor, and he was just in this made-for-TV piece of dreck that Mystery Science Theater got their hands on, and it's hilarious.
I have to say, I worked at Blockbuster Video during my college years, and Manos: The Hands of Fate was a movie that I did rent for free, granted, luckily, and me and my D&D group watched it and made it through. But yeah, I remember that movie.
It's a tough one because the movie itself doesn't make sense, but there's so much ridiculousness on its own that the MST guys make it better. I mean, that whole character Torgo, and then, you know, the guy with his wives, and there's just that random scene where women in their 90s are fighting, and so there's a lot of good in it organically.
Right. There's a lot of material for it to be made fun of.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I worked at Blockbuster too, by the way. I think it's like a thing we all have to do.
Oh my goodness. It's funny now because like my kids are so into obviously like Netflix or YouTube or having everything be accessible, and I always tell them stories about like having to go somewhere and see if the movie was even there and then having to pay for it and take it back, and they're like, what are you talking about?
We had to rewind it. No, just kidding.
Exactly.
But by the time I worked at Blockbuster, it was all DVDs. It was 2005. But I will say that my hands have never gotten filthier than when I worked at Blockbusters. That was literally the dirtiest job I ever had.
Oh yeah, I mean, because I worked there during videotape time, like before they even had started transitioning to DVDs, because DVD players had just come out, and I mean, like the first ones where they were so expensive, and I had like one of the people was like, "Oh yeah, it's so great," like, and there's like almost no support for it at the time, and between like checking the videotapes, rewinding the videotapes with those rewinders that you had, which I know that I personally bought a rewinder just for my home usage for college at the time. I was like, if people are going to borrow my videotapes, at least I can rewind them and put them back in the correct spot. But yeah, between like the dirty video, like the cassettes or the boxes coming back, and you're touching all that and then putting them back on those dirty shelves, and it's like, okay, like that's the main thing at Blockbuster. Sure, customer service and putting everything back, but that second thing was always cleaning those freaking shelves because they would get nasty.
Yes, and we vacuumed, we dusted. Like, I worked the night shift. I was there till 2 a.m. scrubbing sometimes, but oh my God, it was just filthy. It was when I worked in a comic book shop too at one point, you know, years before that, and even that wasn't half as gnarly as Blockbuster. That was a special flavor of dirt.
Oh yeah, and then especially like during inventory where you're connecting your guns and rolling them all out across the store and having to get down on your hands and knees to scan those tapes on the bottom, or for you like DVDs on that bottom shelf, and oh gosh,
like, I remember that too, and I would remember that I'd be like cross-eyed, so tired, and I would tell my supervisor, like, I think I messed up on the scanning. And you just start all over. Oh, it was the worst.
Yeah, because like I worked Blockbuster for I think 3 years just as like a CSR, and then I was like assistant store manager for like the last 2, and I like some of the greatest people I've ever worked with. The job terrible. I remember like death threats about late fees. We had to call the cops on people because like they'd come in drunk and like threaten us, like, "Oh, I'm going to come back with my shotgun over this $4 late fee." It's like, what are you talking? It's a $4. It's not a big deal. Like, you don't have to threaten us.
Just don't buy the tub of popcorn. Pay your late fee instead. We're good, man.
It's so crazy. Like that portion, not the best. Free movies, absolutely. People that dig movies and want to just have fun, I'll take it.
Yeah,
like, that was good.
I definitely, that was when I saw the majority of that was when I was on my Asian horror kick, was when I worked at Blockbuster, because they had all those, they had all like the Taiwanese imports and all the Japanese horror movies that were really big in the early 2000s. And that's when I got to see all those movies, Dark Water and Ringu and Ju-on and the Taiwanese one about the eye and all that gnarly stuff. That was a lot of fun for me. They moved me into the Game Rush really quick because they wanted a girl as the face. They had me managing Game Rush really quick, and that's when the first Xbox, when the first Xbox came out, and so you can imagine, I literally had, not to compliment myself, I had guys hovering my counter, just bugging me all day. It was special time.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I remember when it cost like, you'd have to put down like a $200 deposit to rent the Xbox or the PlayStation to bring it home. And it's like, oh gosh, like having to manage that. And the craziness that they'd come up with sometimes. But yeah, like that time period, the movies that we got to see that were coming out were just you'd never get that chance again, or you'd never even know about it if you didn't work at Blockbuster and be like, oh, what's coming out for new releases that I can rent this week for free.
Exactly. And you were encouraged to watch it, which is fun. And you got really good at that game where people would come in and say, I want to rent this movie. The cover looks like this. And you'd say, what actor? And they're like, I think Bill Murray. And you're like, I got that movie for you. You just had to get to know things by their covers and like help people that way. It was really funny.
Yep, that is hilarious. Like, I love when people like, because you still drive by stores now and you're like, that used to be a Blockbuster. I can tell just by looking at it.
Yeah.
Oh man. Now, have you seen going back to Mystery Science for a moment, have you seen the new stuff that like Netflix put out?
I have. Yes. I did watch a good portion of season 11. I was dying to know. I was so excited for it, and I wasn't disappointed. I thought it was great.
Okay, cool. Because I can definitely like, it's super easy to find those episodes and then take a look for all the other Mystery Science Theater stuff. And I love who they have like in the new version, like Patton Oswalt, Felicia Day are both part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they everyone's perfectly cast. My only criticism would be I'd love some more dynamic work on the bad guys of when they do film Felicia Day and Patton Oswalt, but I know they had their reasons. So maybe for season 12 we'll just get some more dynamic camera work, and then everything we'll get my seal of approval. But the riffing is hilarious. The movie choices are great. I'm happy.
Awesome. And for people that need to check it out, definitely check out some of the stuff that Loryn recommended. Maybe not Manos Hands of Fate, because God, that movie is so terrible.
It's a tough one, but like I said, that's what like the fan, whenever you have the conversation and they say, what's the movie I should start with? They're like, you should at least get to know Manos. Just understand.
Now, along with your two big fandoms, which, Sailor Moon and Mystery Science, you are a author and a blogger and writer and funny person, like I said in the introduction. And what would you like to talk about first? Your book that's coming out or your blogging that you're doing now?
Oh my gosh. It's even surreal just hearing those two words assigned to myself. We can start with PopLurker with the blog, the website, and how that kind of came around.
PopLurker showed up just recently, as far as as we're recording this. It's a new venture for you, and I love a lot of the articles that are coming out. Like I mentioned at the beginning, it's a lot of fun because it's like it's really different takes on like subjects that you would not think about, and then I get to read about it. It's like, I like these articles. So I guess the first question is, how did you come up with PopLurker? Like, how did that come to fruition?
Well, it's funny. So I was lucky enough that I had a couple of successful pitches to crack.com, and I was starting to build a little bit of a platform. As of now, I have 8 pieces published with Crack, and it's amazing, and I'm so happy that happened. But with writing, for a website like that, you just have to come up with pitches, and not every pitch hits. So what ended up happening was I wanted to keep writing on the internet, and it was really, really fun for me. But I found that I had just had this arsenal of, to put it bluntly, rejected pitches. And I said to myself, I'm like, I have enough rejected pitches here to start a blog. And that's kind of exactly what I did. I wanted to write about the things I wanted to write about, but I wanted it to be a contribution to the internet. I didn't just want to write countdown lists or summaries of things, not to discount anyone who does that. If that's how you create your art, that's fine. For me personally, I wanted to create articles that would entertain, sort of teach, and just kind of give you a spazzy outlook on a topic you may not be familiar with. So that's how I started. I actually relaunched my blog, which was just, WordPress, Loryn Stone. That was back only 6 months ago, in maybe 6.5, at the middle of July. And I was just doing a once a week posting schedule. And next thing I knew, I had 25 posts. And I started getting people asking if I took contributor posts or if they could write something for me. I built an excellent group of readers and friends and enthusiastic people on Twitter who I continue to talk to, who found me from Cracked and then started reading my work. And I thought to myself, well, I don't want to put your work on Loryn Stone. That's silly. I need to reinvent this. So coincidentally, it was the new year, and I said, I'm going to buy a domain and I'm going to try to make a website that has quality content. That's not the same old nostalgia stuff talking about the same topics in a countdown fashion, the best of, the worst of, the most interesting of. I really wanted to give reasons that broke down, even if they were weird or contradictory. That just kind of was my goal. So I sat down and I was like, I need a name that is different and fun. And it took me 24 very, very stressful hours to come up with the name PopLurker. And I love it because I love the idea of, because I'm always lurking the internet. There's a darkness to it. There's like that trolling, scouring, just it reminds me going back to my early days of Sailor Moon fandom, where you literally had to just lurk and scour the internet for any information you could find on a topic. And that's why I went with PopLurker.
And you're one of the, I guess, I obviously you're like the editor and in charge of everything that comes in with it.
I am, yeah. People are goodly enough to pitch me article ideas, and I kind of, based on what I learned from my own pitching to other websites, I can take their pitches and I can kind of help them form them into something if I think there's potential. And ultimately, I can't pay. As of right now, the website's not monetized. I don't make any money. I don't yet have a Patreon, although that is going to come soon. I don't make money off my site, but I love doing it. And I think it's funny. And if I can help someone who says, I want to write pop culture stuff, but I have no idea where to start, I've never gotten honest feedback, I don't know where I stand on my writing. If I can help someone to get there, if I can give somebody gentle, honest feedback and help them understand their strengths or where they might need some help, I mean, I know it sounds cheesy, my day is better. That for me is huge. If I can help someone with their writing and they view me as a person who can help them accomplish that, that's enormous for me.
What are some of your favorite articles that you've published on PopLurker so far that you would point to and be like, if you want a sense or feel of what you're going to find at PopLurker, like what are some of those like articles that you'd be like, here's some examples of what this site's going to be all about?
That's a great question. I love I wrote a piece about what anime fandom was like back in the late 90s and how different it was. That piece I'm very, very proud of. Coincidentally, it's also my highest hitting piece with like the most reads. But that's not why I love it. It was because I got to go back, like we were talking about earlier. I got to relive, like, where did I first see anime? Oh, yeah, it was on Nick Jr. And then I did this, and then I did this, and then I found those weird Canadian bootleg videotapes. And so that getting to go back through all of that was really fun for me. So I would say the 90s anime fan piece is excellent. I really actually like the piece I published today about the Sailor Moon rumors that were floating around the internet. That was a lot of fun to write. That was today's piece. I recommend that one. I wrote a few weeks back a piece about my favorite mystery science theater moments. And that one was, again, just a lot of fun to write. And you can kind of see the energy that I try to put into the site in there. And as far as my contributors, I've gotten some awesome contributor pieces, but I think the one I love the best, I published my contributor pieces on Tuesdays, and I got a hilarious one by a writer named Jen, who wrote about how Jennifer's Body, that movie from '09, is fundamentally better than Citizen Kane. And it just had me like on the floor dying when I was editing that piece. Like I couldn't disagree, and I couldn't believe it. I just loved where it was coming from, and that's the kind of material I try to keep on PopLurker is, high energy. Of course, we're allowed to be sad sometimes and feel real things, and there's real life experiences. I talk about my son on the autism spectrum every couple months, which isn't always an easy article to write, but ultimately it's high energy. And it's pointing out ridiculous things. I point out movie tropes. We point out television tropes, and just kind of try to come from a perspective that hasn't been done on the internet a million times.
And I think that's one of the things that I remember commenting to you on Twitter with probably one of the longest things where I'd ever written like multiple tweets to somebody, because I'd come across your article. I'm not sure if it's on PopLurker or somewhere else about your son on the autism spectrum. And I have of my 3 children, like 2 of them are on the autism spectrum for separate things. And like what you had written, like related to me. And I was like, I just got to get it out there about like our experience of going through like doctor's appointments and just like social interactions and dealing with parents and dealing with other kids. And like that was one of the things where I was like, I think that was one of our probably like first connections of like just interacting with each other was over that.
And I remember you following me, and I remember following you, and we were, I think we were casual appreciators of each other's work up until that moment when I did publish the initial article about my son's autism diagnosis, and that's when you and I really clicked better because I didn't know that you had 2 of them on the autism spectrum, and just hearing that feedback, that kind of, not to diminish the Me Too movement, but just that kind of Me Too it was huge. The response was huge and just overwhelmingly wonderful. And it really, because when you write in comedy and then you kind of put yourself out there, like your heart, your family, your actual real life, and just to have people that you respect as acquaintances or colleagues come back and say, hey, you're not alone, here's my experience. It's like, we all kind of have that, I don't want to say dark secret because my son, he's not a dark secret, but just that kind of experience off the record when the curtains close that, we all go through together, which was just really special.
Right, exactly. Like, and we tell every year, it's always the same thing when we meet the teachers for that first day. It's like, okay, we just need to pull you to the side and tell you everything that you may or may not experience with like the two that are on the spectrum. And it's like, you might not ever see what we see at the house, but just in case, like, here's the list of things that could possibly come up. And it's like the thing every year. And it's like, now they're to the point of, okay, they're mostly like for one of them, they understand like the social cues and everything. Like, okay, don't do this, don't try not to do that. But, it's like going to occupational therapy 2 or 3 times a week, or having the behavioral therapist come to our house 2 or 3 times a week to work with them on getting them to, not do the right thing, I guess, but to understand what they're doing, and that some of the stuff that it's not really the best thing to do in a public place.
Exactly.
So yeah, like, like those articles, I always like tend to be like, oh, let me read and see what's going on with Loryn, and how maybe she's doing that experience, and like I've got that experience, and I'll be like, oh, let me send a quick message. But then on the other side, like, you do have those poppy art, like the pop culture articles, where I read the Sailor Moon article that came out today, but then I just read, like, probably an hour before we're recording, the Sophia the First article about her and Cedric, and I'm like, because my kids were the perfect age right as Sophia was debuting, and I was like, oh, having to sit through some of that stuff. And I don't think I've watched like whatever the latest season is ever since like Elena of Avalor got spun out of it. But like, yeah, like there were some times where I was like, I totally understand what's being put down in the article.
And that's just me at my creepiest. Like every once in a while, I'll just jump in with some sort of fan theory, or like last week I did like the sexiest horror movie villains, and people will just be like, yep. Are you all right? Because that's just like, yeah, because we all have different sides to us, and for me, things like, oh yeah, Sophia the First is about a destined couple between this kid. I mean, I'm not saying there's any pedophilia or anything horrible in there, but it's like when she grows up, she and that sorcerer are totally, oh yeah, they're a destined couple, and she's a witch, and blah 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 blah. So yeah, there's that, and then there's like, oh yeah, let me tell you how sexy Pennywise the Clown is, and people are like, Loryn. I can't help it.
I have to say, as a parent, you have to like start making stuff up in your head to get through some of these like cartoons. And it's like, like we watched Peppa Pig for a while, and it's like, I wonder who Peppa would eventually like marry and hang out with, like as far as like Peppa as a teenager or Peppa in her 20s, and Or, with Sophia, it's like, I wonder who Sophia, like, if Sophia was going to be with somebody, who would Sophia be with? And you just,
Cedric.
that just comes natural, at least for me. Like, I'm watching along, I'm like, well, let's talk about this. Let me work out my feelings on this, like, fan theory that I'm going with.
No, and you're exactly right. That's actually how my first Cracked article came up, because my kids were really into Thomas and Friends. My first Cracked article was about how Thomas was like classist and racist and all these kind of matter-of-fact things. But my very first version that I had pitched to Cracked was absolutely insane. I was going on about how Topham Hatt was like a Gendo Ikari from Evangelion, and he's stuffing the soul of dead people into trains. Like, I went insane, and they were like, "Do you have can you back that up?" I'm like, "No," but it's funny, and that's kind of how it started.
Oh my gosh, that's that's hilarious.
Maybe I'll write that for PopLurker just for fun, because I had this whole, I might even still have my notes. I don't know. I have to go check. But I had this whole argument about how that dude is like stuffing dead people into these trains. Oh god.
Oh my goodness. Now, for PopLurker, I know you said Tuesdays is your day where you have the contributor pieces come out. Is there another, like, is every day an article, or is it like Tuesday's that, and then another day is another release? And
the posting schedule as of this speaking is Tuesday is my contributor piece. Thursday is one of my pieces. Friday is kind of like a Flash Friday like ridiculous countdown of something terrible, complete with pictures. Saturday is one of my pieces. I try to do one more serious piece on like a Thursday, and then like something more ridiculous on a Saturday. But my Thursday might be contributor pieces depending on my schedule. Ideally, in my perfect world, my huge plan would be like 2 new articles 7 days a week, but PopLurker's a month old.
right, exactly. Switching from PopLurker now, you have a book that is soon to be published. Is that correct?
Yes. It's called My Starlight, and it will be published on August 3rd of this year by Affinity Rainbow Publications.
And what is it about?
My Starlight it's fiction. It's young adult fiction, and it's kind of just this. It's just influenced by my life from teenagehood till now. It's about a girl who's openly bisexual, who plays the bass in a band with her boyfriend, but she was a longtime fan of anime until her mom died, and then she retracted and just hung out with her boyfriend. She's recruited into an anime club of sorts, where she develops a crush on the female vice president of the club, and kind of tension and chaos and temptation ensues from there.
How long have you been working on the book? Like, is it like something that you've been working on for a couple of years? Is it something where you sat down and you're like, okay, I'm going to finally write a book?
It was actually my second attempt at writing. After my mom died in August of 2015. I need to write a book. And I sat down and I wrote this book. It was kind of this magical realism, supernatural teen fiction. I wrote that in like 7 months, and then I revised it in 2 months. I pitched it around. It didn't go anywhere. There's room to go back and revise at some point. My Starlight, I actually wrote in 2 months, from September 2017 until November 2017. I started pitching it to publishers and agents in November. The response was really positive, and the first ones to really be like, no, we need this, it was Affinity Rainbow. And I signed a contract with them. It was like a month. So it all happened really fast, which is a huge compliment to me.
That is awesome. Like, because you always hear the stories of, it took 10 years or 15 years, or, pitching the story and going back and revising and then pitching again, and how it just sometimes it just doesn't go places. And that's awesome for it to go from, writing to that in such a quick time. Like, that is incredible.
It was just the story that needed to be told. It was a story that was mature and good the way it was. I went through one drafting process, cleaning it up, and right now I'm at the point with the publisher where they're going to give me a formal editing schedule soon. But as it is as a whole, it's clean. The story's solid. My beta readers were super enthusiastic. I had people saying, I don't normally read anything like this. I've never read any queer literature. I've never read about fandom or cosplaying or anything like that, but I really just enjoyed the book still. So that was awesome for me.
It is definitely hitting a niche that I think is really underrepresented, because again, I go to the kids book fairs that they have at school, and I think I saw recently that there was a book that had come out about a girl that was into cosplay and like a fandom, and was like a very geared towards like young adult like fiction, and I think that segment or that population is very untouched by that kind of work that you're doing for your book, and then some of the other books that are out there, because most of it's very, young adult, like Hunger Games ish, or maybe like Percy Jackson, so like that kind of world storytelling, or you get like just the straight up I guess like young adult romance ish novels, because I've seen those that are geared towards like the like girls and whatnot. But it's that like that book that you're going to have coming out sounds like very much targeted to what is growing into like a very big population that's out there.
I agree. I think proper representation of anime fandom, of cosplaying fandom, of people on the LGBT spectrum, of where whatever flavor of it you're on, just stories that are, one, not coming out stories, because there's a lot of coming out stories, and this is not a coming out story. This is, here's a girl, she's bisexual, now here's her story.
Right.
And then you have, or something that's not tragic or terrible, where there's a lot of tragic stories in LGBT fiction. There's a lot of, also now there's a movement in fantasy novels where characters are, they're non-binary on the gender spectrum, and that's all wonderful stuff. But again, these are in these fantastical worlds, and I'm just giving you a simple high school story in a contemporary setting that we can all identify with just strong emotions, sometimes funny, sometimes sad, and just things that anyone who's ever felt these nerdy or uncomfortable or feelings, their sexuality, where they stand socially, I feel like they can all just really identify and get something out of it. Honestly, if this kind of book was available when I was a teenager trying to figure it out, it would have been huge for me, because a lot of stories about women together was just nasty erotica. That's the fact of the matter. Things are changing, and it's wonderful.
Right, like you wouldn't even like the earliest stuff that I can remember, beyond like obviously going back to Sailor Moon and hearing like that Uranus and Neptune weren't cousins. Like the only type of stuff that I would ever see would be on things like HBO, like those Taxi Cab Confessions, or just the stuff in Blockbuster where it's in that special corner of the area, and you're like, oh well, okay. But yeah, you'd never get something mainstream, or even like remotely touching on those kind of topics back in like the late 90s and stuff. Like it just wasn't done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're really shifting in literature and in publishing, and it's a really promising and exciting direction.
Now, when the book comes out, will it be like, I know some books, come out as ebooks first, and then they eventually get turned into either like paperback or hardback. Will it be the same with that, or it'll be like across the board released as a book in a bookstore and then as ebook as well?
So from my understanding, what's going to happen with it, because this is a small publisher, they will release it on ebook, and it's going to be available from anywhere you can buy ebooks: Barnes & Noble, their website, Amazon, everywhere. It will also be available for print, so you can have a physical copy, but unless like a small bookstore chooses to stock it, then it's really going to be just like the new you purchase it from Amazon, and they'll send you a physical copy. But there's a word for it that I'm spacing on right now, but it's like print to purchase or something like that.
Okay, like print on demand.
Like print on demand, exactly.
Okay. Well, that's a great option to have. I know that coming from like a tabletop role playing background, a lot of things are coming out now PDF first, and then they have that option where if you want the physical copy, you pay and they print it, and it saves money for people. Instead of having to stock a book that may or may not sell, like you can just have those people like, okay, I've read it and now I just want to have it on the bookshelf to have, or maybe give as a copy to people.
Exactly. And because I know myself and I am who I am. I mean, I want to do like the convention circuit. Like I want to go to conventions and hawk it in the artist's alley. I want to try to contact as many independent bookstores and let them know that they can carry it on the shelves. I am out there to market myself, which is really beneficial to everybody out there who wants this book to sell. So
Exactly. It's not like you're in some lodge somewhere and you're just like, okay, take my book, and eventually maybe someone will buy it. Like that's the big thing, is getting out there. And I think with what you've said about the book, yeah, definitely, like conventions are definitely going to be that spot where you can drum up people to get interested in it and have that go around. And yeah, and obviously Twitter will be a huge thing too, with getting people invested in it and interested. And yeah, I'm excited to have the book come out now because I want to read it.
thank you. Yeah, I'm super hopeful for it. I'm going to go to anime clubs at my local colleges, talk to people, go visit my old college stomping grounds. Like I'm ready to push this thing. I'm ready for people to read it. I'm excited for it. I'm hoping other people will be excited too. I want people to buy copies for their friends. I want them to say, this book helped me, this changed my life, it made me laugh. Oh my God, like someone actually wrote a book about being an anime nerd. That's ridiculous. I gotta know. Whatever propels you to the book is phenomenal. And I really hope that it makes a mark for this small publisher, because I think that'd just be amazing.
It would be. And it comes out again August, you said?
August 3rd. That's
August
actually my
3rd.
birthday. So it's a birthday
awesome.
present. Yeah.
Now, for everyone who's been listening to us talk about whether it's Sailor Moon or Mystery Science Theater or PopLurker or the book, where can people find you on the internet to either follow you or follow along with the book, or anything else social media related?
I am super active on Twitter, and my handle's Loryn Stone, Loryn, last name Stone, Stone. You can find PopLurker.com, and I'm right there. I'm on Instagram as Loryn Stone _official. And then there's links on PopLurker to my author's blog, which is lorynstone.wordpress. So I'm around.
Awesome. And I'll have all the links on our show notes and on our website and Facebook page as well. So you can just easily click and get to Loryn wherever she may reside on the internet, so you can follow along with her. And I just definitely have to say, check out PopLurker. The articles are awesome. Definitely go back and check out, like, if you're listening to this now, whether it's April or May or whenever this episode gets released, definitely go back and check out articles that were published before, because there's a lot of really fun, crazy articles, whether it's like the sexiest evil villains or the Sophia article. I mean, if you're a parent and you're listening along and you want to read about that Cedric Sophia, I don't know if you'd call it romance or just that crazy, article of like, oh, well, maybe in the future. But yeah, you can definitely go back, take a look at that, and then tweet at me and Loryn and tell us your thoughts or opinions. And because I'm invested, I got to reread it and just be like, like, let me take a look at that again.
Thank you.
But Loryn, it was absolutely a pleasure to have you on the podcast, and I'm excited for what's going to come out in the future.
Thank you. So appreciate the opportunity, David. It was so much fun getting to hang out and talk to you. It's super cool.
Thank you for listening to Tales from the Fandom. Subscribe to us on iTunes or your podcast app of choice. Follow us on Facebook at www.facebook.com/talesfromthefandom to see photos, links, leave feedback, and check out upcoming guests. If you'd like to be a guest, email David at talesfromthefandom@gmail.com.